Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shakedown. On this episode, I am continuing my conversation with Malone. If you want to see the beginning of that conversation, there is a link in the description. This episode, we're going to be focusing mostly on why do officers back each other up, even though they don't necessarily like each other. And then what is prison life like for the officers? And do they just live normal everyday lives and then come to the prison? Find out now. All right. So another thing that we wanted to talk that we were talking about is that something that is something that a lot of people wouldn't understand unless they've been locked up or they've been on the other side of this is when police, or really for our personal experience, we've seen this with prison officers where they all just line up and then they defend each other, even though a lot of times they'll stab each other in the back, or they'll do it like they have this weird familial like hatred of each other a lot of time. But then when something goes wrong, they'll all just back each other up. And we have
They have unified. They present a unified front of lies whenever they have to.
mhm.
And lying, well, I'm talking about. I have never seen anybody can tell lies like TDC employees. They will lie. They will lie with the proof put in their face. They'll lie. And whenever it's absolutely come to light and it all starts crumbling down, it's like what you said. It's like in the case of Geesey. At first, lie, but then the videotape is shown, and whenever it's on videotape, then all of a sudden it's okay, this person has to fall on the sword, and then they start making decisions on who it is that's going to have to take the blame. Funny enough, it's funny how everybody didn't lose their job that was involved in that, because I mean it literally went from the warden down, but all you saw
that
was
yeah, that was so. I was so all right for those. We've touched on Geesey's case before, but let's break down this case because
what happened there.
it's an amazing story. First off, Geesey's a hero. First of all, Geesey. I was locked up with Geesey at the Ramsey's unit,
Ramsey.
Ramsey one. There's several.
Yeah.
There's just like
Now I guess it's just Ramsey now since they've renamed the other units.
yeah, they've renamed the other reason, but it's still Ramsey one. Um, and I think Ramsey is one of the names like so there's, as I have been finding out recently, a lot of the units, the prisons in Texas are named after the plantations that were there on the
Right.
land that Texas bought them from.
Right.
So Ramsey would be the plantation owner that owned all that land in Rosharon. So that's why they're all Ramsey, Ramsey, Ramsey. And same thing with Darrington, and why it's all of a sudden now the memorial unit, because Darrington was a um,
Big
a
plantation.
big plantation. And now they're like, we need to kind of step back the fact that these were all plantations. We leased our inmates and we
Yeah,
still kind of do the slavery thing all the time. Yeah.
change the names, therefore the situation can stay the same.
Right.
Hasn't changed since the days of slavery. I
It's
think it was actually some kind of even back whenever they had problem. Whenever the problem was with like Native Americans, indigenous peoples and so forth like that. I think they were actually using those areas as like a detention camp or something. But I could be wrong about that. I think I looked on Google Earth or something. I was looking up some of those areas, and that's what they were saying. It goes back as far back as history you can get in this area. The places where they have prisons have been slave camps and still are.
they're cursed ground, and there it's not the history is not great. And like I said, there's a lot of performative things they've done to try and draw attention away from what's happened there, but that's not good.
Do you remember whenever they uncovered those mass graves? I think they were digging in somewhere around the central unit, and they found the mass graves of old of the prisoners that they were using for labor in some areas,
I remember
slave
hearing
labor.
about it. I remember hearing about it, but not that's about it. Just vaguely hearing about them uncovering a mass grave, which was always wonderful to hear while you're locked up.
Yeah,
So Geesey, all right, Geesey, um, basically Geesey was is well, I think he's out now, but I
yeah,
think
he got out.
Geesey was locked up for a long time. He had a family that really supported him, and he was one of the very few inmates that knew how to do paperwork, which was he could do write ups. He knew how to do the proper steps, which could which like basically if a when you're talking about write-ups and like filing grievances and things like that, there is a process that can actually get people in trouble. There's
Lawsuit thing.
lawsuits, and he could do all of his legal work. He could do it successfully, and a big part of that was because he had a family that cared about him outside of prison. Without that family, they could have just shuttered him away in a maximum security unit in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, never let him get any mail out or anything like that. That's happened before.
Right. So they sent him to Ramsey one, um, and he was there for a while, and he had written up the field squads recently. He written up about he actually what he was his big thing that he was doing at the moment was that the
He
warden.
got the thumb drive or something off
Well,
the unit to
oh yeah,
the
he he had
reporter.
gotten he gotten a lot of evidence, all right, including a thumb drive, including a lot of information, and that was one thing he was doing too. He was getting information off the unit, which is another thing that was kind of saving his ass, even though it was also putting him in a lot of jeopardy. He gotten evidence uh to the
It was a thumb
outside.
drive, and it had
It,
a
it had the
uh,
email on it.
orders. Email, but it had orders on it
What?
for the
Well,
night shift lieutenant for the case quotas.
it's the case. So the case quotas. What the case quotas were is that the warden had um, had handed down and he had given it to the major, which the major then redistributed to everyone else. And the orders for the case quota were this: every officer on the unit had to write up 2 cases a shift. Um, every time they came on shift, they would need at least 2 cases, or else they were
And
going to
told them
get
what to write it up on.
this
Told
that.
told what to,
So here's the thing about that. Okay, there that might have been a separate email. I will say this. So Geesey got had a connection in the furniture factory, which is where I worked. That
yeah.
connection in the furniture factory made copies of the things of that email and a lot of other things that were on um, that Geesey would post up about the quotas. They would make copies. He would distribute them across the unit, all the copies across the unit, and then in every cell block, they would tape up the email. So I saw the email before I really understood what it was about. Like I was thinking when they taped up that email, I thought it was like they were showing the inmates that this was an official order now. Just like when they say this is
Yeah,
this has just
like an
come down from
inter
Hunt's.
office communication type of thing.
Right. Like it looked like it was on the same board that had like interoffice communications from Huntsville saying, now inmates are allowed to have beard passes. That same level of communication, that's where this was next to. And in our cell blocks, it did not have the thing about uh, on that email, it had specifically that they had to give 2 quotas. Did not say what they had to write it on, but I will say the ones that there were very specific ones that were very easy to write up. So it was very easy to write up stuff out of place in the bunk, or there were
Yeah.
certain ones that were very easy to write up plus out of place was a very easy one to write up.
Weren't they all something, like that minor,
Yeah. Be,
what do you call those things, those cases,
they're
uh, out of compliance cases? They were
out
all
of
like minor
yeah,
compliance cases.
out of compliance cases for those listening and no time. Out of compliance were like you had certain rules for upkeep for your cell. All right. And there was certain rules because you had to keep all of your everything that you owned had to be put away. There were certain things that could
Yeah.
be visible and certain things could be not. At one point at Ramsey 1, they tried to make it so that nothing could be visible, which was impossible because you had a box that was this big. It was this
Yeah.
big. I'd be this big, this deep. It's every all of your earthly possessions. This big, this big, this big. Not possible. I was in college and I had textbooks. I had to find ways to hide those constantly. And the worst part, the way I had to hide them on the ground. Ramsey 1 had the worst roach problem ever. And if you've never seen what roaches do to textbooks, oh, it's horrifying. It's
I know.
horrifying. Even worse, what they do to radios. But that's we'll try and let the listeners not have nightmares at this point. But um, anyway, so they had these out of compliance or the case quotas. Officers writing 2 cases a day, which means people were getting cases nonstop. This also meant so meant that there were some officers that were all about it. They're like, we're gonna write up. People were noticing that they were getting write ups, and then also they'd have to go to the sergeants and all that kind of stuff. And the sergeant, like depending on the sergeant you got, he would just throw them out. He would just be doing people like entire groups would be going up there, and he would just be mass throwing out cases because there would be too many cases coming to him. He couldn't handle it because you're not the cases. The cases are supposed to like kind of keep inmates in line. They're like a
What is a case? What is explain what a case
okay.
is.
I so I'll put
You
it this
explain.
way: you're locked up, all right, um, and you punch someone in the face. That's clearly wrong, but you're and but you're locked up and you punch them in the face. So what can you do? What can the officers do if you punch someone in the face? They can write you a case. If they write you a case, and then they go, and then
The
once they
case is like a document, right?
it's like a document. Just like if they arrest you,
A
you
file.
haven't right. They haven't officially the charges haven't officially gone through as soon as you get arrested. They have to go through a process, and then once you complete the process, if the charge goes through, then you go to prison or you go to jail or whatever. But the same thing with a case. Case has a process it goes through, and then if the charges go through, you might lose your custody level. You might go down to medium custody, or you might go down to all the way to ad seg. Though if it's really bad, they might just pull you off to ad seg right away. And if it's let's say an ad seg is solitary confinement for those of you who don't know, and then if or let's say you do something like, all right, you're stealing from other inmates, well, or something like that, it's a major case. They're going to put it, it's going to show up on your record when you come up for parole being like, see, this guy is not the ideal room inmate.
If your case is within a certain period of time or proximity to parole, it probably just precludes you from even. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not going to stop coming up for parole, but you're pretty much assured not to make it.
yeah, you're assured you're not going to make it. And if you're it's also going to eliminate your privileges. So let's say it's Friday. The visitation is coming up on the weekend. You've got to visit on the weekend, and your family's coming, and someone else punches you in the face. Well, now you're both coming up, and you might both lose your visitation privileges. Like it's you because now you're in the middle. You've been in the middle of a conflict.
But
Eh,
basically, I mean,
yeah,
okay, how do they? Okay, so you find someone, one of these guards writes you, takes one of these documents out, this case document, and fills it out with the information of the offense, the date and time, and who you are, and where you live, what your housing is and all this type of stuff, and then puts in the disciplinary code, the code in there that he's saying that you violated, and then he adds some personal details. So what's going to happen after that? After they file one of these pieces of paper, then
You're
let's
gonna
say that what's going to happen next?
all right. What's gonna happen next is you're gonna get called. You're not gonna get called while you're at
By who?
work. You're gonna get called by the case officer or by usually by a sergeant or by a ranking officer
A
who
sergeant or above has to come in
yes
and they have to
yes
investigate. They don't
after
necessarily have to call you out though. Sometimes they'll actually come to you.
yes that is true. Sometimes they will. Usually it's not like that. Usually I will tell you every time I've
It'll be
had a
like
case,
a mass call out in the evening or something, whenever and
it's going to be when you so either one at like 4 a.m. they'll call you over there, or two it'll be at 6 p.m. Right when you're like about to get ready for your favorite show and right before count, like a minute before count, and they're gonna send you
oh,
over to another build, and you're gonna be
they're good
stuck
about
in.
that.
They're gonna get you
Yeah,
stuck in that count for 2 hours, and you're gonna
sitting in
have
the
to.
hallway.
You're gonna be standing in the hallway before you see that case officer, and then you'll see the chaos officer, and then you'll get stuck in count again because it's evening and you have multiple counts.
Yeah.
So that
Especially if it's a minor case, they try to do that to you because they know they're not going to be able to do much else to you. So they just try to inconvenience you as much as they can.
the other thing
You can
they're all
you can even refuse to go to those things. You can refuse your what you call it. You can refuse to go to the investigation. You can refuse to go to the case thing, to the hearing of the case and all that. But even whenever you do refuse, oftentimes they'll send a guard down there to personally come and get you and threaten you with more disciplinary action if you don't come, just to get you to go down there. So you have to, if you're going to refuse, you have to go and sign a piece of paper at the desk or something, which is nonsense. You don't have to. But yeah, I've seen them do it.
yeah, I've seen them do that too. And the other part of it, I think too, the reason why they do it is because they want to get you all riled up and hope they can
Oh
get
yeah,
you on some. They want you to get something else. They want to get you on. Oh, you're going to cuss me out. Well, here's a new case, and here's
they especially do that whenever whenever it comes to those major disciplinaries. Whenever you have to go to a major and they have the recording. I don't know how many times I've seen those things. That captain will he'll do his finger like this because he knows that they can't see him on the tape. They have the
yeah,
old fashioned tape recorder, the with the big ass buttons on it.
yeah,
He'll stop the tape. I don't know how they get away with stopping. This is what blows me away is that there's nothing stopping them. There's no what do they call that procedure for stopping for just stopping the recording. Why are they recording this to make sure that the whole case is documented? But at any point in time that they so decide, they're in control of the tape recorder, can turn it off and turn it back on at will. So they'll turn it off, cuss you out, get you all kinds of ways riled up, tell you that they don't give a damn about anything you're saying, and as far as they're concerned, you deserve everything you get, and then click, hit it again just when they know you're about to talk, so they get you coming across as aggressive. And whenever you catch your bad tone on there and all that, it doesn't matter what you say after that. You're going to sound upset, and that's just going to people are going to be. And if you try to use that tape as evidence later on in some kind of grievance or appeals process, well, then this is what they have on you. Is well, the inmate was being aggressive and was being disruptive or something else, something like that.
we've talked about this before, and so this is a good time to point out, like, this is what Geesey was up against. This is what Geesey was good at fighting. So the officers did not like Geesey. All of their normal tricks did not. It sometimes worked. He had to deal with some stuff. It is not being a person who's good at writing paper in prison. Not a good life. It is a tough life. You have to be committed to writing that paper because you're gonna have
If
to
he'd
do
have
it.
been on another unit, if he'd have just been over there right across the street on the Stringville unit, they don't have cameras there. If they'd have done the same thing to him on the Stringfellow unit that they did to him on the Ramsey 1 unit, we would have never known about it. He would have been buried in Ag Seg somewhere for a long time.
So what did they do to Geesey? And then why is Geesey so prison famous and why is he such a hero? So the field squad, what like the ones that who are there, the field squad is like the hit team for the warden, for the staff, for like the prison officers. Like when anytime they need dirty work done, they're gonna call the field squad. When they're doing shakedowns and things like that, the field squad comes out. So the field squad comes down and they're like going to shake down, and they're not going to shake down the entire cell block that Geesey's on. They're coming to shake down Geesey's cell, period. All right. So they go down and shake down his cell, and lo and behold, they find a hammer in his cell, a weapon. So they lock his ass up. He's in ad seg. Geesey gets a hold of his people some way, somehow. Don't know how he does it, but he manages to get a hold of his people and says, look, there is something like this is not mine. You need to check the video, check the cameras. And fortunately, as Malone just said, they had cameras at that unit. So they
Which is
had
rare. They don't have cameras on most units in Texas.
Dalhart.
That's unusual.
Dalhart has cameras all over, and there's like 2 working cameras. None of them are on cell blocks. So there, the idea that there was a working camera system outside of Geesey's cell block that caught the field officer with the hammer before he walked in, amazing. That was a miracle, and that made the Houston Chronicle, that made the Marshall Project, that made all like the big rounds in the news, and every inmate heard about Geesey and
Geesey
the
was immediately shipped to the Rams
or
to Stringfellow,
Stringville.
where I was, and that's where I met him.
And so Geesey gets shipped to Stringfellow, and to me, I just hear about the man, the myth, the legend, Geesey, over at Ramsey 1. And meanwhile, they're doing an investigation over this whole thing. Now, the field officers, I think maybe 1 or 2 of them got fired. All right, that was the extent of the firings that happened. But as we all know, they've all gotten directions from
Yeah,
the
they weren't direct. They did not make that decision on their own. That was
Mm-mm.
something that was decided upon from way higher up. It was the people that Geesey had implicated with the that thumb drive or whatever that thing, uh, memory stick or whatever the hell they call those things, that made those decisions, that give the orders to
Right. They didn't want whatever Geesey had to get out to the papers because he had stuff on the
and
warden and the
already
major.
at that point.
And that got out to the papers, and so the information about the warden, the major, and then the video of the field squad got out. The field squad people got fired. The um the warden and the major get shipped to other units. The warden just becomes a
Oftentimes the case. Whenever disciplinary for people that high up, they don't lose their job. They just get moved around.
yeah, and that's it. They got the warden just becomes warden at another unit. The major, who he became the center of this, even though he's the third in command here. He got a pay cut and became um the major on a medical unit on Estelle, I think. And I was like, but that like the all right, it basically from bottom up, the punishment got worse at the bottom, was the worst at the bottom, and the person who was making all the decisions at the top, least amount of punishment.
I bet you if you really look into it too, that before those guys at the bottom had to fall on their sword, they were told that, look, we got to make this look good. We've got pop, but we're going to take care of you, type of thing. I'd like to know what ultimately found where they landed.
it
I
would
think
be
you'd be
interesting.
surprised.
Probably wouldn't be surprised. I'd probably want to throw up because that's the thing. Those guys would probably, yeah, they're gonna. It is, and I'm gonna say this about like this is how old school Texas prisons are. The wardens, the deputy wardens, a lot of the officers, they live in houses that are maintained by inmates every day. They
They have
clean
inmates that wash their clothes, that wash their cars, that mow their lawns, that clean their pools.
this it and their houses are on former plantations.
Oh,
That they're slaves, but they're inmates who are doing all of the work for them. If they need something done, sometimes, hey, do I need brand new shoes? I'll have an inmate make them. They will do all, like, do I need
carpenter, do I want a brand new table? They'll have an inmate in the craft shop make them go in there and make them a fancy table. They've come to me. And, does my daughter needs my daughter? Oh, I've had a warden come to me while I was in the craft shop. My daughter is in the Girl Scouts. We have a Girl Scout parade coming up, and we need a sign. I had to airbrush their sign for them. I had to make a Girl Scout sign to be hauled behind the back of a pickup truck.
Oh, so close. Next week, you're going to hear these awesome stories that we've been building up to for these last 2 episodes. So really come in and stay tuned. There, look, it took me an hour to get Malone to like spill his guts on these stories. So, they're good. They're really good. I promise. I even tell a crazy story, and I yell at a freaking not a preacher, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Come back, watch the episodes. If you're new, welcome, subscribe, like, do the things. And yeah, check out our Patreon, check out our store. Yeah, help support us. Check out the graphic novel. There's still a few first edition copies you can buy. Get one of those. Anyway, thank you for coming. Next episode, there will be stories, there'll be intrigue, interest, stuff coming soon. All right. Thank you. Bye. You can find Shakedown merch, graphic novels, and other projects at waywordpress.com. That's WAYWORD press.com. If you would like to support The Shakedown, get exclusive content, and watch episodes live, you can support us at patreon.com/theshakedown. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment to give Malone that inner peace he so richly deserves.